It's always been a dream of mine to be a popular boy band from the mid-90s, and now with NSYNC Get to the Show on the Game Boy Color, that dream can finally become a reality. Video games featuring licensed likenesses of popular musicians have been around at least as far back as the early 80s. After all, when it comes to persuading people to buy things, brand recognition certainly doesn't hurt. Mom, can we get this? It has 50 cents. Although these kinds of games used to span all sorts of genres, nowadays they tend to stick to the tried and true format where you play along to the artist's music, with games such as the Beatles Rock Band and the Black Eyed Peas Experience. Interestingly, American singer Michael Joseph Jackson actually had video games made about him during both of these eras. Arcade beat-em-up games based on Moonwalker were published by Sega in 1990, and 2 decades later in 2010, a standard dance game called Michael Jackson The Experience was published by Ubisoft. Michael Jackson The Experience was published on pretty much every platform that could possibly get it to run on. The Wii, the Xbox 360, the PS3, the DS, the 3DS, the PSP, the PS Vita, the iPhone, and even the Mac. So many options, I'll have to try them all out and see which one's the ideal Michael Jackson The Experience. There was also another game about the King of Pop planned to be released called Michael's World. It was scheduled to come out in 2011, and it would have been a massively multiplayer online RPG, focusing on Michael Jackson's dance moves and non-violent credo. This game pretty much just fizzled out, and a little bit of promotional artwork was all we ever saw of it. However, it was never officially cancelled, so there's a very real chance we'll still get to see it someday. It's only been, 10 years? Duke Nukem Forever took 15. But back to the games that actually did get released. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of Moonwalker here to show you, since I spent all my Michael money on this, but I can pass it on to someone who does. StomperYoshi. Take it away, Ethan.
Thanks, Ethan. Moonwalker was the name of multiple games licensed by the King of Pop in 1990.
There was a rudimentary home computer game, a classic beat-em-up arcade game that was published by Sega, and a version of the game that was released for the Master System and Mega Drive/Genesis.
It's worth noting that all these Moonwalker games were made to tie into the Moonwalker movie. It was the 80s. Every musician thought they could act.
The movie was basically a few music videos strung together by a story of Michael Jackson dodging the paparazzi and preventing his friends from falling victim to an evil plot to get all the world's children addicted to drugs, orchestrated by a supervillain drug lord played by none other than Joe Pesci.
And why Joe Pesci? Because Joe Pesci's awesome!
Paid out my ass, treat all my bras like trash. You'll catch a blast if you move too fast.
Back to the game, everyone seems to remember the Sega Genesis version the most. Luckily because Sega heavily pushed it as a reason to buy a Sega and not a Nintendo. And Michael Jackson was a pretty big fan of Sega, judging by the fact that he cameoed in the Space Channel 5 games and grossed out a good part of the soundtrack to Sonic 3.
The game has 5 levels, an old nightclub, the streets, a haunted forest, some caverns, and the bad guy's hideout. The object of the game is to save all the children in each level while defending yourself from all the bad guys out to get you. Michael can run, jump, kick magic sparkles, throw magic sparkles, use his hat as a boomerang, and of course, moonwalk. Oh, and he can also grab his balls. Once all the children are saved, Michael's pet chimpanzee Bubble will suddenly appear and tell him where to go to fight the final boss rush. Once you get there, you're faced with a whole bunch of bad guys to fight, though most can be defeated by using a special magic attack that causes everyone to stop fighting and get up and dance. Be careful with it though, because this uses up Michael's magic meter, which doubles as his health meter, and you'd certainly want to keep an eye on that. If that wasn't enough, rescuing the children in the right order will cause a shooting star to fall. If you're quick enough to grab it, Michael Jackson will temporarily turn into a giant robot that can shoot lasers at everyone in his path!
But it isn't a Michael Jackson game without Michael Jackson's music, and they did a pretty good job at making Michael Jackson's music work on the Sega Genesis.
Michael's hits, like Smooth Criminal, Beat It, Billie Jean, and Bad, are spectacularly rendered by the Genesis' Yamaha chip. This game also uses digitized voice samples, and they're also pretty clear for 1990.
Who's bad?
There's just one problem. They went ahead and programmed a graveyard level, but then they realized they only had the rights to songs Michael Jackson wrote. And since he didn't write Thriller, we're stuck with dancing zombies dancing to Another Part of Me. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it?
Though we can tell that they came to that realization a bit later in the development cycle, since a prototype eventually surfaced that had a practically complete arrangement of Thriller.
It's probably the biggest missed opportunity this game has. Aside from not bringing Joe Pesci back in to do some voice acting.
You never catch me!
All in all, it's a fun, but slightly challenging game. But despite featuring plenty of dancing action, it doesn't actually teach you how to dance like Michael. Fortunately, that's where Michael Jackson The Experience comes in. Back to you, Ethan.
Thanks, Ethan. That's right, with this game you can, quote, step into the King of Pop's videos and learn all of his moves. I'll be a pro in no time. Although the game was multi-platform, it came out on the Wii first in 2010, and it didn't launch on any other home consoles until 5 months later in 2011. The game sounded like it would be a great fit for the Wii, since it was the only one of the 3 major home consoles at the time that had built-in motion controls, so you'd be ready set for dancing action without the need to buy any special peripherals. Nintendo thought so too, and so to promote the game they had Mario and Luigi dancing along to Beat It during a showcase of the game at a French trade show. They both only scored 0 out of 5 stars, so I guess canonically neither of the Mario brothers have got the moves like Jackson. The Wii release also had a few special releases put out for it. While regular copies of the game were severely lacking in the including another part of me as a playable song department, versions of the game published at Walmart remedied this problem.
They really care about us.
You could tell which one you were getting because the Walmart copies have this handy identifying banner in the corner telling you about the exclusive bonus track. As a separate promotion, early copies of the Wii release included a replica of Mr. Jackson's trademark single glove, perfect for cosplays. To make matters more complicated, there was also overlap between these 2 special editions, leading to a total of 4 combinations altogether. In an act that would probably disappoint my high school biology teacher, I've constructed a Punnett square to illustrate the situation. For the best results, you'd want to get an early copy of the game at Walmart, which would include both the exclusive bonus track and the glove. The funny thing is, they accidentally published more than 1 copy of the early releases. This leads to a little loophole where you can actually buy more than 1 copy of the game, leading to twice as many gloves as Michael Jackson had, and by extension, twice as much swag. There was also a collector's edition, which didn't come out in the United States and was only sold in PAL regions. Unlike the US release, which is suitable from everyone aged 10 and up, this version can only be played by gamers over the age of 12. The collector's edition includes a special I Heart MJ t-shirt, which is very stylish, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to include the exclusive bonus track Another Part of Me, or the glove, which prevents it from being the game's definitive release. The Xbox 360 collector's edition, on the other hand, fares significantly better. In addition to the shirt, it also includes the exclusive bonus track Another Part of Me, the lyrics for all the songs, as well as a wireless microphone. The microphone seems to be a fairly pointless addition to the set, since the Kinect, which is required to play, already has a microphone built into it. But it's still a nice touch. However, despite all that, it still doesn't include the glove, so alas, there's no single version where you can get everything in one convenient package. The game is similar in style to Just Dance, where the dance moves appear on screen and you have to time your movements to match them. There's also Michael Jackson. You're instructed to mirror the dancer's movements on screen as if they were your own reflection, which seems simple enough, but how are you supposed to do Michael Jackson's 45-degree lean? That's -1 point to the PS3 version for injuring me. In the game's defense, it does have tutorials on how to dance, but you can't actually watch them until you do well in the game, at which point you presumably wouldn't need them anymore. An MTV article from shortly before the game's release advised that the Wii version would be the easiest version to play, since the Wii remote can only track the motion of your right hand instead of using a camera to track your full body, like the connected PSI could. But this hasn't been my experience at all. I played for an hour and I was only able to get a single star. The official Ubisoft support Twitter account recommended that I try moving the sensor bar, but that didn't help. I guess I'm just bad. The Xbox 360 version utilizes a completely different control scheme, not using a controller at all and simply relying on the camera on the Kinect. The background removal doesn't seem to be designed for people who have hair, but overall, having your image put in the game this way is pretty great. It looks like I'm really there, and the dance detection is a lot more forgiving under this system. I was able to get 4 out of 5 stars, so I'll count that as a win. Another new feature that comes with the Kinect is that it will snap an exceptionally flattering photo of you in the middle of every song, which is shown after the song finishes. As mentioned earlier, this version also has the option to use the microphone so you can sing in addition to dancing, adding a whole new separate vector of embarrassment. If you select this mode, you alternate between dancing and singing at different parts of the song, so you never have to do both simultaneously. You'd expect that the PS3 version would have the worst of both worlds, since it utilizes both the PlayStation Move motion controllers and a camera in the form of the PlayStation Eye. But in practice, it's a lot closer to the Wii version, since the camera isn't actually used for gameplay. It's supposed to show you on screen while you play, but I couldn't get it to work and I couldn't find any videos of it working online, so I suspect it just doesn't. This version does still allow you to sing by using a wired microphone if you happen to have one, but it doesn't allow you to dance and sing during the same song. You have to choose. You can sort of get around this by setting up a game where one player's dancing and one player's singing and then just doing them both yourself, but this has the negative side effect of being hard. The PS3 version also handles singing slightly differently from the Xbox version. While the Xbox version was very lenient when it came to accuracy, the PS3 version visualizes all the notes you have to hit, which really serves to illustrate the discrepancies between your voice and the target notes. Overall, I'd say that the Xbox 360 version is my personal favorite out of the 3 console releases. However, the Wii version ended up selling the best out of the bunch, the only benchmark that really matters. It sold over 4 million total copies, with the Xbox version coming in a distant second at less than 900,000. Now onto the handheld releases. You've got no shortage of options if you want to play this game on the go, with 6 arguably handheld options to choose from. But unfortunately, the version released on iOS and Macs is no longer available, which is a real shame because based on the trailer, it looked awesome. I know we're really missing out, but we're just gonna have to cut our losses and look at the ones we do have. There are 2 different eras of these handheld variants, the first being the releases on the DS and PSP, and the second being the releases on the 3DS and PS Vita. The first generation was released alongside the Wii version at launch, and the rest came out later. Unlike the console versions, the handhelds don't have all the songs available from the get-go, and you have to unlock them by playing through the game. Another thing that's new is that they used a different sort of model for Michael Jackson. In the DS and PSP versions, you get this blocky, cartoonish rendition of him, but in the 3DS and PS Vita versions, they went with a more realistic-looking model, even more so than the console editions. Interestingly, the second generation of handheld releases got special changes to their titles. The 3DS version was fittingly called Michael Jackson The Experience 3D, and the PS Vita version was called Michael Jackson The Experience HD, a reference to the PS Vita's pixel-packed 544 display. So what matters more, HD or 3D? It's the age-old trade-off between high definition and 3 definition. Since none of these portable game consoles have motion controls, you can't play them by dancing, and so they have to use a completely alternate control scheme involving swiping and tapping the screen. It works, but I feel like it undermines the game's entire purpose. The PSP version is the worst of the bunch in this respect, since it doesn't even have a touchscreen, and is reduced to just your standard rhythm game controls where you just press buttons. That's about it for Michael Jackson The Experience, but before we go, there's one more Michael Jackson related game that I think is worth mentioning. Ready to Rumble Boxing Round 2. This game featured multiple unlockable celebrity fighters, including Shaquille O'Neal, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and of course, Michael Jackson, who actually did motion tracking and voice lines for his inclusion in the game.
I'm gonna dance all over you! Rumble! Don't tango with the king of pop!
So much for that non-violent credo.